Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. James Rhodes stretched his long frame on the couch, eyes fixed on the spreadsheet illuminating his laptop screen. Numbers never lied. People did, but numbers remained constant. At 39, the systems analyst had built the stable life his child itself had craved: good job, suburban home, 2 children. But lately, something fell off. James, are you working again? Betty's voice carried from the kitchen. It's almost 9. Just wrapping up, he replied, closing his laptop. Betty appeared in the doorway, phone in hand as usual. At 36, she maintained a carefully curated appearance, blonde hair styled in beachy waves, makeup meticulously applied even for an evening at home. The ring light from her phone cast an artificial glow on her face. You know your birthday's coming up, she said, thumbs still moving across her screen. The big 4-0. You don't need to get me anything special. Betty laughed, the sound tinkling like glass. Don't be silly. Your gift will blow your mind. Her phone pinged, and she glanced down, a smile spreading across her face before turning away slightly. James felt that familiar twinge in his chest. For months now, he'd noticed the subtle changes: Betty hiding her screen, giggling at private messages, taking calls in the bathroom with the water running. Growing up with a father who'd perfected the art of false promises before abandoning the family had taught James to recognize the signs of deception. Later, James checked on his children. Noah, 17, barely acknowledged him, lost in his phone and wireless earbuds. Lacey, 13, was more receptive. Mom's planning something big for your birthday, Lacey said, lowering her voice. She keeps saying it'll blow your mind. Well, I look forward to being surprised, James said, though the pit in his stomach suggested otherwise. By the time Betty came to bed, James was pretending to be asleep. She didn't whisper good night or touch him. She just tapped away on her phone, the blue light illuminating her face in the darkness. The day before his birthday, Betty mentioned casually, keep the evening free tomorrow. The whole day, or just evening? Just evening, she said quickly. We have that thing in the morning, remember? James didn't remember anything, but he nodded anyway. Another lie to add to the collection. Saturday morning, his birthday, James woke to an empty bed. The house was unnervingly quiet. No sounds of Betty's morning smoothie blending. No thumping bass from Noah's room. No Lacey calling for someone to help find her shoe. Betty, he called, patting down the hallway. No answer. The house was spotless, unnervingly so. Every surface gleamed. James checked his phone. No messages. He sent a text to Betty. Where is everyone? No immediate response. He checked the kids' rooms, beds made, everything in place. In the kitchen, coffee was prepared, still warm. No card. No note. No explanation. By noon, the silence had become oppressive. James had called Betty 3 times, each going straight to voicemail. He texted both kids with no response. The gift that would blow his mind was becoming clearer with each passing hour. Finally, he opened Instagram, Betty's preferred platform. Her story appeared at the top of his feed. He tapped it. Betty's face filled the screen, sparkling with filtered perfection. Behind her, the unmistakable skyline of Dubai glittered. Living my best life at the Burj Al Arab, her caption read. James swiped to the next story. Noah appeared, sunglasses pushed back on his head. Mom's treating us, since Dad's boring anyway. Hashtag blessed, hashtag Dubai, hashtag living large. James closed the app. No tears came. No outburst of rage. Just a cold, clarifying anger that settled in his bones. He put on his running shoes and left the immaculate, empty house. For 2 hours, he ran, his mind processing the betrayal. When he returned home, his phone was lighting up with notifications. James, call me now. Have you seen Betty's video? You need to take down that post. Confusion replaced anger as James scrolled through the messages. One from Betty's cousin Addison caught his eye. I always knew she was trash. Call me when you see what she posted. James checked his content vault. There was nothing new from him, but a video had been uploaded to Betty's main feed 3 hours ago, with over 3 million views already. The thumbnail showed Betty, clearly intoxicated, speaking directly to the camera. With growing dread, James pressed play. "Hey, followers," Betty slurred. "I'm filming this for my Healing Journey series I'm planning for next month." She giggled, taking a swig from a glass of wine. "But tonight, I need to vent about my marriage. James has no clue what I've been doing for the past year." She leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I've been with 4 different men since last January. 4. And he's so oblivious, so boring, so predictable that he hasn't noticed a thing." She laughed again, the sound grating and cruel. "God, it feels good to say it out loud. I've been dying inside in this marriage. Dying. But the sponsors love the perfect family image, you know? So I play the part. Good little wifey at home. But when I'm traveling for work," she made exaggerated air quotes and winked. "Anyway, this is just for me right now. Need to get it off my chest before I film the real series. I'll figure out how to break it to James eventually. Maybe after his birthday. I'm taking the kids to Dubai. Told him it's a surprise for him. Can you believe that?" The video had been auto-scheduled months ago and forgotten, a drunken rant never meant to see the light of day. Now exposed to millions. James sat perfectly still, the phone gripped tightly in his hand. Then he blocked Betty's number. Blocked Noah's. He hesitated at Lacey's name, then blocked her too. Not forever, but for now. He needed silence. He needed space to think. Monday morning found James in the parking lot of Quinn Legal Services. Nora Quinn arrived at 8 sharp, eyebrows rising when she spotted James waiting by her office door. "Either you're extremely eager to discuss intellectual property rights for your new security system, or something's wrong," she said, unlocking the door. "Something's wrong," James confirmed, following her inside. Once they were settled, James explained the situation without emotion: his wife's infidelity, her accidental confession to millions of followers, the Dubai trip. "Have you responded publicly?" Nora asked when he finished. "No." "Good. Don't." She leaned forward. "What do you want, James?" "Divorce. Custody of Lacey." He didn't hesitate. "Noah. He's 17. Nearly an adult. He's made his choice clear. Assets. The house is in my name only." Betty insisted, better for tax purposes with her influencer income. A hint of satisfaction crossed his face. "Her business account is joint. Personal accounts, separate." James reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a flash drive. "Everything's here. Bank statements, text messages, emails, location data from our shared family account. I've been documenting things for months." Nora's eyebrows rose. "You suspected?" "I grew up with a father who lied as easily as breathing," James said flatly. "I recognized the signs. After he abandoned us, my mother was blindsided, no documentation, no protection. I swore I'd never be caught unprepared." Back in his car, James finally checked his voicemail. 16 messages from Betty, each more desperate than the last, culminating in a plea to contact the children. He deleted them all but unblocked Lacey's number, sending a simple text. "I love you. We'll talk soon." Her response came immediately. "Dad, are you okay? Mom's freaking out. Everyone's saying awful things online." "I'm so sorry." "Not your fault," he replied. "We'll work it out. Stay strong. At work." James requested a week of personal leave. His manager approved it without questions. That evening, he received a text from Addison. "James, it's Addison. Betty's cousin. I need to talk to you. I have information." "What kind of information?" "Screenshots. Conversations. Things Betty doesn't know I saved. Things that will help you in court. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow. Noon." James also received a call from Rico Navarro, his old college roommate, and now a successful podcast host. "You hanging in there, man?" Rico asked. "Managing," James replied. "Listen, if you want to tell your side, you know my platform is yours. No gotcha questions, no editing to make you look bad. Just straight talk." "Not yet. There are legal matters to handle first." Later, Noah texted, "Dad, this is so messed up. Mom won't stop crying. The hotel kicked us out. Everyone's posting awful stuff. Can you help us get home?" James read the message twice, noting what wasn't there: no apology, no acknowledgement of hurt, just a request for assistance. "Contact American Embassy if you need emergency assistance." I'll have your room belongings packed when you return. That's it? That's all you have to say? Noah replied immediately. What would you like me to say? I don't know. Something? Anything? You're just going to abandon us. The irony wasn't lost on James. I'm not the one who left. Noah. Mom said you'd react this way. Always have to be right. Never any forgiveness. James felt a flicker of anger. Forgiveness requires remorse, son. When you're ready to talk about what happened, not just the consequences you're facing, I'll be here. There was no response to his meeting with Addison. She provided screenshots of Betty boasting about her affairs, mocking her followers, and complaining about how boring and predictable James was. In one particularly damning exchange, she outlined plans to eventually divorce him once she'd built enough of a following to support herself independently. Why didn't you tell me sooner? James asked. Family loyalty at first, then fear of not being believed. Betty can be convincing when she wants to be. And now, 2 years ago, I went through a brutal divorce. Betty promised to help me, then slept with my ex-husband a week later. For fun. She told me it was my fault for being boring in bed. James winced. I'm sorry. Don't be. It showed me who she really is. Addison pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here, including conversations with other people who've been hurt by her. Back home, James found 2 plainclothes officers waiting by his door. Mr. Rhodes? Detective Wilson. This is Detective Moore. We received a report from Dubai authorities. Your wife has filed a complaint alleging harassment and threats. I've had no contact with my wife since Saturday. James replied, showing them his phone as proof. That afternoon, James signed the divorce papers with a steady hand. The box of tissues Nora discreetly placed on her desk remained untouched. These will be served to Betty upon her return to U.S. soil, Nora explained. I've arranged for a process server to meet their flight. That evening, James finally called Rico. I'm ready to talk, he said simply. About time, Rico replied. My studio tomorrow, 2 o'clock. At the studio, when the recording began, Rico started with a straightforward introduction, then turned to James. Let's begin with the obvious question. How much of what Betty said in that video was true? James met his gaze steadily. The affairs were real. I suspected for months, but didn't have confirmation until the video. And you never confronted her. I grew up with a father who was a pathological liar, James said. When I was 10, he abandoned our family without warning. Left my mother blindsided financially, emotionally, legally. She never saw it coming. That experience shaped how you handled your own situation. It taught me to recognize the signs, to prepare rather than confront prematurely. James's voice remained even. I started documenting patterns months ago. Disappearing for hours, hidden conversations, changed passwords. The classic signs. Some might call that calculating. I call it self-preservation. James leaned forward slightly. When you grow up watching someone you love be destroyed by deception, you develop certain safeguards. Near the end, Rico asked, after all this, do you hate her? James considered this. Hate requires a continued investment. I don't hate Betty. I'm disappointed, certainly. Angry, yes. But mostly I feel free. The constant suspicion, the walking on eggshells, the pretending nothing was wrong that was exhausting. Now I can stop pretending. What would you say to her if she were sitting here right now? Nothing, James said simply. There's nothing left to say. The following day, when Betty's flight landed, the process server met them at the gate. James received a confirmation text. Your wife and children just landed. Papers served. Proceeding to next assignment. Only when Lacey's name appeared on his screen did he answer. Dad. Her voice was small, confused. There's a man here who gave Mom papers. She's crying and screaming. Noah's yelling at everyone. What's happening? I'm sorry you're in the middle of this, sweetheart. The papers are legal documents about our family situation. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Yes, we are. At the courthouse, Betty stormed down the hallway, face flushed with anger. Noah trailed behind her, glaring at James. You manipulative, calculating bastard, Betty hissed. Serving me divorce papers at the airport? Filing for custody behind my back. Someone who's tired of being lied to. James replied calmly. Where's Lacey? Safe from you, Betty snapped. The judge granted temporary emergency custody of Lacey to James, with supervised visitation rights for Betty. Outside the courtroom, James checked his phone to find a voicemail from Betty. "You'll never see Lacey again if this is how you want to play it. I'm taking her somewhere you can't reach her. You've destroyed this family, not me." James played the message for Nora, who immediately called the authorities. An Amber Alert was issued for Lacey, and police began searching for Betty's vehicle. Hours later, James received a call from the sheriff's department. "We've located your daughter at her aunt's residence in Portland. Your wife was attempting to arrange transportation to Seattle when we arrived." At the Family Services Center, Lacey launched herself into James's arms. "Dad, everything's crazy. Mom said we had to run because you were trying to hurt us. But that didn't make sense because you never hurt anyone. It's okay now. You're safe." Back home, James showed Lacey to her room, where he'd arranged her drawings in a collage on one wall. "You kept these?" she asked, touching one from when she was 7. "Of course. They're important." Rico's interview was released the next day, spreading across the internet like wildfire. James's calm recounting of events resonated with viewers tired of Betty's emotional performances. "I didn't lose my family," James stated in the most quoted segment. "I lost dead weight." The line became a social media catchphrase overnight. The days following the custody drama established a new rhythm. Lacey began seeing a therapist twice weekly. James worked remotely to remain available for her. Betty complied with the court-ordered visitation schedule, 2 supervised hours every Saturday at the Family Services Center. Noah remained with Betty at a hotel, refusing all contact with James. The few messages James sent went unanswered, each silence another small wound. Rico called with disturbing news. Betty did another interview with that morning show host, Winnie Blake. "It's bad, James." James and Lacey watched as Betty, carefully styled to appear vulnerable, claimed psychological abuse and control. "James monitored everything I did," she claimed, voice trembling artfully. "When I finally found the courage to build my own career, he became resentful, emotionally distant." "That's not true," Lacey said indignantly. "None of that is true. You never did those things." "No, I didn't," James agreed calmly. "Dad," Lacey said hesitantly, "can I say something? About what Mom's really like? In public, I mean." James exchanged glances with Rico. "That's a big step, Lacey. You be putting yourself in the spotlight." "I know, but Mom's lying about you. About everything. It's not right." "Your dad's right, kiddo. Once you speak publicly, you can't take it back. The internet never forgets." "Neither do I," Lacey said firmly. "I remember Mom making me retake photos 20 times because my smile wasn't right. I remember her yelling at Dad when he didn't want to be in her videos. I remember her telling me I'd be prettier if I lost weight. I was 11. After getting court approval with strict parameters, Lacey's interview was recorded. She spoke candidly about growing up with an influencer mother, describing the pressure to appear perfect and the disruption to family moments for content creation. "When I was little, she was just Mom. She played with us, baked cookies, read bedtime stories. Then she started getting followers, and it was like she became a different person depending on who was watching." The interview shifted public perception dramatically. Betty's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel as Lacey's account resonated with viewers. Betty's response came swiftly, a tearful live stream, accusing James of manipulating Lacey. The performance fell flat when she referred to a beach house James was considering buying. "He's using my business money to buy a luxury property to turn Lacey against me." Noah texted James, "Mom's been having me track your bank accounts." "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know what else to do." James felt a cold anger unlike anything he'd experienced before. "That's illegal, Noah. Banking fraud. How long has this been happening?" "Since the divorce filing. She made me use your old passwords. Said she was entitled to know where her money was going. I know. That's why I'm telling you. I can't do this anymore." The next morning, James found Noah sitting on the front steps of the house, a duffel bag beside him. "Can I stay here for a while?" Noah asked, not quite meeting James's gaze. "I told Mom I couldn't lie for her anymore. She didn't take it well. Your room's exactly as you left it," he said simply, holding the door open. Later, Noah confessed. Mom's planning to leave the country again. She thinks she's going to lose the custody case. She has tickets to Bali for next week. The next day, Nora filed for an emergency hearing. The judge ordered Betty to surrender her passport and restricted Lacey's visits to a secure facility with court officers present. Betty's response was a public meltdown, a live stream, where she accused James of fabricating evidence and turning Noah against her. "My own son, manipulated by his father's lies," she sobbed dramatically. The performance ended abruptly when Noah himself entered the frame. "Stop lying, Mom," he said clearly. "You know why I left. You know what you asked me to do. It wasn't Dad." James found a beautiful coastal home and sold their suburban house. He converted Betty's portion into a trust for the children's education, a move that simultaneously protected the assets and demonstrated his commitment to their future. Lacey thrived in the new environment, her bedroom walls now adorned with framed drawings spanning her childhood. Noah's adjustment proved more challenging, but their relationship was healing slowly. James began developing a digital security firm, finding an unexpected niche, protecting public figures from exactly the kind of technological vulnerabilities his family had experienced. Rico's media connections provided an initial client base, and surprisingly, Addison's marketing expertise became invaluable to the new venture. "Isn't this weird?" Addison asked during their first official meeting. "Working together after everything with Betty. Life takes unexpected turns," James replied. "Sometimes for the better." 2 days before the final custody hearing, James discovered a security breach in his work files. Someone had been accessing confidential business plans for his new security consulting firm. The infiltration had come through Noah's gaming console, which contained a hardware backdoor installed while he was living with Betty. That night, James received an email with the subject line, "Checkmate." Inside was a link to a cloud storage folder containing copies of all his business documents, client communications, and personal files, including therapy notes, legal strategy emails, and conversations with Lacey's therapist. The final file was a video of Betty. "Hello, James," she began, smiling coldly. "Surprised? You shouldn't be. You taught me the importance of documentation, of preparation. Did you really think you were the only one who could play that game? Here's what happens next. You withdraw the custody petition. You transfer half the proceeds from the house sale to my account. You make a public statement clearing my name. If you don't, everything in that folder goes public, including those touching little notes about your trauma from Daddy abandoning you." James called Nora, forwarding the email and video. "We need to get ahead of this," he said grimly. "Agreed. This is extortion, plain and simple. We take this to the judge tomorrow, first thing." At the courthouse, the judge reviewed the evidence of Betty's extortion attempt, her expression grave. Betty sat at the opposing table, looking confident until she saw the judge's face. "Ms. Rhodes," the judge began, "before we proceed with the scheduled hearing, I need to address some disturbing materials submitted to the court this morning. Are you aware of an extortion attempt made against Mr. Rhodes regarding this case?" Betty's facade cracked slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about, Your Honor." The judge nodded to the bailiff, who played the video on the courtroom monitor. Betty's face drained of color as her own words condemned her. That's taken out of context," she stammered. "James hacked my accounts. He's framing me." "Ms. Rhodes, this court takes attempted witness intimidation and extortion extremely seriously. You are ordered to surrender your passport to the court immediately. The court will appoint a guardian ad litem to represent the children's interests given these new developments." In the following weeks, the legal landscape shifted dramatically. Betty's extortion attempt resulted in criminal charges, while the custody case concluded with James receiving primary custody of both children. Noah had formally requested to live with his father despite being months from legal adulthood. Meanwhile, Betty faced a new crisis. Her former brand partner, Better Skin, filed a lawsuit claiming fraud based on leaked messages where Betty admitted their products gave her a rash while promoting them publicly. Combined with her legal fees and collapsed career, Betty's financial situation deteriorated completely. 6 months later, Betty reached out to James directly. "I need help," her text read. "The legal fees are destroying me. I can't even afford rent anymore. Can we talk about a loan? For the kid's sake? James considered his response carefully. The hurt Betty had inflicted wasn't just on him but on Noah and Lacey, wounds still healing with time and therapy. You said I was boring? He replied finally. Let me bore you with silence. He blocked her number again. This time with certainty that Betty's return to Oregon marked the beginning of a new phase in the ongoing drama. Following her release on bail for the extortion charges, she took up residence in a modest apartment, a far cry from the luxury she'd once flaunted on social media. Her following had dwindled significantly, many former fans disgusted by the revelations about her character and behavior. James maintained his policy of minimal contact, communicating about the children only through their court-appointed coordinator. Noah, now months from graduation, divided his time between academic pursuits and therapy, working to understand the manipulation he'd experienced and his role in it. Do I have to go tomorrow? Lacey asked one Friday evening, picking at her dinner. Mom just complains the whole time about how everyone's abandoned her. James chose his words carefully. The court order requires the visits, but if they're becoming distressing, we can ask for a review. It's not exactly distressing, Lacey clarified. It's just sad. She doesn't really ask about me anymore. It's all about her problems. That evening, Nora called with unexpected news. Betty's filed a motion to revisit the custody arrangement, she reported. She's claiming she's been misrepresented and that the children are being alienated from her. Based on what evidence? James asked, pinching the bridge of his nose. None that would stand up to scrutiny. She's representing herself, apparently can't afford counsel anymore, and the filing is more emotional plea than legal argument. Will the court even entertain this? They have to review all motions, but given the history and her pending criminal charges, it's unlikely to progress far. Still, you should be prepared for another round of drama. The following morning, as James drove Lacey to her supervised visit, they arrived to find Betty giving an impromptu press conference on the steps of the Family Services Center. I'm being denied meaningful access to my children, she declared to a small cluster of reporters. Their father has systematically alienated them, turned them against me, all while hiding our marital assets to force me into poverty. When the visit finally proceeded, Betty attempted to convince Lacey to escape with her to Bali. When Lacey refused, Betty became emotional, accusing her of betrayal and abandonment by the time they arrived home. 3 news vans had parked outside their gates. Betty's press conference had evidently stirred renewed interest in the story. Rico called with surprising information. Betty's just been hired by Truth Tellers Media, that fringe network that specializes in conspiracy content and canceled personalities. They're giving her a weekly segment to tell her side of the story. The first episode of Betty's news segment presented a completely distorted version of events, painting Betty as the victim of a calculated takedown orchestrated by James and unnamed powerful interests threatened by her influence. Most disturbing was her focus on the children, especially Lacey. My daughter is being systematically programmed against me, she claimed tearfully, denied her mother's love during her crucial developmental years. Noah, exercising his new legal independence through an approved emancipation petition, responded with his first and only public statement, a simply worded post clarifying that his decisions were his own, made without pressure from either parent. Mom, I love you, but please stop using me in your narratives, he wrote. My internship, my education, and my future are not weapons in your battle with Dad. I'm neither a victim nor a pawn. I'm just a kid trying to build a life I can be proud of. The statement, mature beyond his years, resonated widely. Responses flooded in from other children of high-conflict divorces, creating an unexpected support community. Noah, initially uncomfortable with attention, gradually embraced his accidental role as a voice for teens navigating parental drama. Maybe some good can come from all this mess, he told James during their weekly call after he'd settled into a summer internship in Seattle. If my experience helps even one kid feel less alone in this kind of situation, it's worth it. James's coastal house became a sanctuary, a place far removed from the suburban life, where Betty had curated their existence for social media consumption. The open floor plan, wall-to-wall windows facing the ocean, and private beach access created the perfect environment for healing. In Lacey's room, James had meticulously framed dozens of her drawings artwork, spanning from her first crayon scribbles at age 3 to her recent, more sophisticated sketches. The wall told a story that no Instagram post ever had, the authentic development of a child, preserved by a father who valued substance over appearance. "You really kept all of these?" Lacey asked, running her fingers along the frames. "Every single one," James confirmed. "They're the real family history, not the stage photos your mother posted." The digital security firm James had conceptualized during the divorce was now a growing reality. Rico, with his media connections, had introduced James to several high-profile clients concerned about their online vulnerability. Addison, with her insider knowledge of influencer marketing, proved an invaluable consultant, helping James understand the unique security challenges faced by public figures. "We should make it official," James suggested during a strategy meeting. "Both of you joining the company. Rico handling client relationships, Addison leading marketing. Working for my best friend's ex-wife's ex-husband." Rico laughed. "That's either the worst idea ever or the perfect revenge plot. I prefer to think of it as making something good from something broken." James replied, as the business gained traction, Betty's fortunes continued to decline. Her segment on Truth Tellers Media attracted a small but vocal audience. Yet mainstream sponsors remained unwilling to associate with her tarnished brand. The lawsuit from Better Skin expanded as other former brand partners came forward with similar complaints of misrepresentation. The final blow came when Better Skin's attorneys uncovered evidence that Betty had knowingly misled consumers about using their products while privately seeking treatment for adverse reactions. The resulting judgment was devastating, a 7-figure penalty that Betty had no means to pay. James learned of the verdict from Nora, who had kept tabs on Betty's legal troubles. "She's filing for bankruptcy," Nora reported. "Between the legal fees, the judgment, and her collapsed income, there's no other option." That evening, James received the text he'd been half expecting. "James, I know you hate me, but I'm desperate. The Better Skin judgment is impossible. I can't even afford an apartment anymore. I need a loan to cover basic living expenses and legal costs. Please, for the kids' sake. They need their mother functioning." James read the message twice, recognizing the familiar manipulation, the appeal to the children's welfare rather than any acknowledgement of her actions or their consequences. After everything, the betrayal, the attempted kidnapping, the extortion, the public lies, Betty still believed she was entitled to his help. "You said I was boring," he replied. "Let me bore you with silence." He closed the door on that chapter of his life, focusing instead on the family and future he was building from the wreckage Betty had created. The beach bonfire illuminated the gathering with a warm golden glow. James watched as Lacey taught Rico's young daughter how to toast the perfect marshmallow, while Noah debated the merits of various colleges with Nora's son. Addison and her new boyfriend chatted with Rico's wife by the cooler, laughing at some shared joke. This improvised family, built from friendship, loyalty, and shared experience rather than blood or legal ties, had become James's anchor over the past year. These people had stood by him through the darkest days without judgment, offering support without pity. "Penny, for your thoughts," Nora asked, settling into the beach chair beside him. "Just appreciating the moment," James replied. "A year ago, I couldn't have imagined this." "A year ago, you were in my office looking like you'd been hit by a truck," Nora reminded him. "Now look at you, successful business, happy kids, beach house." "You did well, James." "We did well," he corrected. "I couldn't have navigated any of this without you." The conversation paused as Lacey approached, something hidden behind her back. "Dad, I know it's super late, but I made you something." She produced a handmade card, decorated with intricate drawings of ocean waves and a tiny family standing on a beach. James recognized the figures immediately: himself, Lacey, and Noah, facing the water together. Inside, Lacey had written in her careful script, "Happy late birthday, Dad. The best gift is just being with you." For the first time in months, James felt a genuine smile spread across his face, not the controlled expression he'd perfected for business meetings or legal proceedings, but a smile that reached his eyes and loosened something tight in his chest. "It's perfect," he said, pulling Lacey into a hug. "Thank you." As the night deepened, James found himself standing at the water's edge, watching waves break against the shore. Rico joined him, offering a bottle of water. "You look content," Rico observed. "It suits you." James nodded. "I am. Not something I expected to feel again so soon." "Your interview just hit 10 million views, by the way. People are calling you an inspiration for how you handled everything." "I'm no inspiration," James said. "I just did what was necessary to protect my children and myself." "That's exactly why people respect you," Rico insisted. "No drama, no public meltdowns, just quiet determination. It's rare, especially in the influencer world Betty inhabits." "Inhabited," James corrected. "Her last account was suspended last week." They stood in companionable silence, watching the fire reflect on the water. Behind them, Lacey laughed at something Noah said, the sound carrying on the evening breeze. "You know what the strangest part is?" James said finally. In her own twisted way, Betty was right. Her gift had blown my mind, just not how she intended. It blew away illusions I'd been living with for years. Forced me to rebuild on truth instead of compromise. "Sometimes destruction precedes creation," Rico observed. James looked back at his children, at the friends gathered around the fire, at the peaceful home he'd created from the wreckage of betrayal. "Better than expected," he said simply. "Much better than expected." As the bonfire burned down to embers, James watched his children joking with their new extended family. Their faces relaxed in a way they hadn't been for years. He thought briefly of Betty, alone in her consequences, still believing herself the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of her own downfall. But the thought passed quickly, replaced by gratitude for the authentic life he now led, one built on integrity rather than image, substance rather than style. The ocean stretched before him, vast and peaceful, a perfect metaphor for the future, open, unpredictable, and full of possibility. James Rhodes stood on the shore, content, unbothered, and undefeated.